who are joining us for the first time, and those of you who still feel like visitors. If you have not already done so, please fill out our digital visitor card by visiting our website, auuf.org/visitor, so that we may welcome you. You may also contact our minister, Reverend Chris Rothbauer, at minister@auuf.org, with any questions or concerns you may have. Let us move into this service, willing to be authentic with each other, honest with ourselves, and open to connections in all of its forms.
Our opening words are from Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. This is a congregation that gathers in faith, not faith in one religion or one God or any one way. We gather in faith of the power of diversity, the power of love, and the hope of a world transformed by our care. We gather in faith in ourselves and those around us, not a faith that requires perfection or rightness in one another, rather a faith that in our shared imperfection we may learn to stumble and fall together, faith that we will help one another to rise and to try again and again. We are Unitarian Universalists. Come, let us worship together.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from the British Isles aboard a tiny ship. John Murray was a mighty man, the skipper brave and sure. The passenger set sail that day for a North American tour, a North American tour. The weather started getting rough, the tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, John Murray would be lost. John Murray would be lost. The ship set ground on the shore of colonial New Jersey with John Murray, the skipper too, Thomas Potter and his wife. That brave crew, the professor and Mary Ann, near Good Luck Point, New Jersey.
I invite you to light your chalice with us this morning with these words from Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice to kindle the fire of commitment to spread our beloved faith, proclaim the good news that all are worthy and all are welcome, that God is love and none shall be left behind. May we carry this flame to all we encounter, letting our lives shine with its glow. And as is our tradition, we also light a candle in solidarity with those families separated at our southern border. I would like to invite you to join in our opening hymn, hymn number 1053 in the Teal hymnal. How could anyone? The words will be shared on screen. I would like to invite you, one of the ways that we proclaim the warmth and caring of our community is by sharing our joys, concerns, and milestones. We invite those who wish to use the Zoom chat box to type your joy, concern, or milestone during the music for meditation. If you wish for your joy or concern to be acknowledged but don't want to share it, you may also type that you have an unspoken joy or concern. Thank you to all who shared their joys, concerns, and milestones this morning. These joys and concerns were submitted in advance for sharing. Carter DeShazo and Lisa Simons Simmons, had to say goodbye to their almost 14-year-old faithful dog companion, Ellie, on Tuesday, September 22nd. Ellie was smart, loving, and beautiful, and provided them both with great companionship, comfort, and love over the years. She will be missed immensely. Our hearts are with all those around the country protesting racial justice this week. Reverend Chris is especially thinking of the First Unitarian Church in Louisville, which was where they did their first ministerial internship. First Unitarian has been providing sanctuary to protesters and has witnessed escalating police violence, threats to raid to the church, and even being surrounded by riot police and threatening to arrest clergy. Sending so much love and prayers to these folks and encouraging people to donate to the Louisville Community Bail Fund to help those being arrested. Another submitted joy and concern. Martha's young neighbor, Abigail Miller, was in a car crash and ended up with a concussion, broken spine, broken pelvis. Please keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. May all the joys, concerns, and milestones of this community, those shared aloud and those held in silence, be received into the care and concern of all present. The light of our chalice would soon flicker and die without the oil that nourishes its flame. And just as this flame cannot burn without oil, this religious community cannot survive or thrive without the financial as well as personal support of its members and friends. The oil that keeps the flame of our liberal religious faith alive and fuels the shared mission and ministry of this fellowship. Let us now give freely and generously an offering to sustain and strengthen our shared religious community, a community of memory, hope, faith, and love. For we are now the keepers of this flame that burns for justice, its stream of beloved community, its vision of a world made whole. To make a donation online via PayPal, please visit our website at auuf.org/donate. If you are writing a check, please make your check payable to AUUF with a note on the memo line about whether it is for the offering or your pledge payment, and mail it to P.O. Box 669, Auburn, Alabama 36831. The offering will now be gratefully received. It's Carter's next, right? That's right.
Good morning. Today I'm going to read you a story about John Murray. There once was a person named John Murray. He lived in England and worked as a minister there. The congregation to which he belonged took religion very seriously. They believed in life after death, but they thought that almost everyone was going to have a terrible, horrible time after they died. Just a very few people would get to live uncomfortably forever. This belief was very important to John's congregation. They didn't like anyone challenging it. Now it happened that John Murray met first one person and then a whole bunch of people who disagreed with the idea so precious to his congregation. These new friends of John also believed in life after death, but they thought that everyone would get to live together happily instead of a few people having fun and everyone else being miserable. After a while, John decided that this idea made more sense to him and seemed like the kinder and better way for the world to be. He became a Universalist. But Now it happened that John Murray met first one person and then a whole bunch of people who disagreed with the idea so precious to his congregation. These new friends of John also believed in life after death, but they thought that everyone would get to live together happily instead of a few people having fun and everyone else being miserable. After a while, John decided that this idea made more sense to him and seemed like the kinder and better way for the world to be. He became a Universalist. But John's old congregation didn't like his ideas at all. Not only did they not want to hear about them, but they told them that if he was going to have such ideas about everyone getting to be happy after they died, he would have to leave their church. A lot of other bad things happened in John's life after he was forced to leave his community. He lost his family, and he ended up in prison for not being able to pay the money that he owed. When he left England for the British colonies in North America, this was before they were called the United States of America, he swore he would never preach or work as a minister again. At this time, all the ships that people used to travel were blown from place to place by the wind. As John's ship was getting near his destination in New York, it was blown away to New Jersey, and he had to stay there until the winds changed direction. John went ashore to find something to eat while his ship was stuck, and he met a man named Thomas Potter. Tom had been hoping for years to find someone who would preach in the little lonely church that he had built himself. Tom held the same unpopular idea about life after death that John did. He was also a Universalist. Tom asked John over and over again to preach in his little empty church, but John had sworn never to preach again. Finally, Tom got John to promise that he would preach if the winds did not change in time for his ship to leave by Sunday. John hoped that he would be gone by then and wouldn't have to make good on his promise. But the winds did not change, and that Sunday, John Murray preached his first sermon in North America. Instead of abandoning his previous life as a minister, John went on from New Jersey to spread the idea of Universalism all over the American Northeast. For that, we have not only John Murray to thank, we also owe our gratitude to Thomas Potter, who knew that there were people who needed John's message and worked so hard to convince him to share it with the world.
The light, slow, and precious. A reading from Teresa I. Soto. It is truth, though it may not always feel like one, that you are worth more than the things that you do. That your being, a worth human being, lives in a different domain than all of your failures, but also the collected sum of your successes. Combining your worth with your results is something like using the sheet music for Beethoven's Fifth Symphony to make an apple pie or even build a doghouse. There is no way for the question to resolve in a final answer. By virtue of being alive, you matter, and you cannot be more deserving of dignity of respect, and of love. Sometimes people make mistakes, but even that cannot change that you are meant to be festooned with celebration of your humanity. If your progress is slow, your movement small, remember that you don't have to compete for compassion. You don't have to compare what you can observe of another's life to make sure that you measure up. You are definitely yourself. What is slow is also valuable. Some of the oldest seeds ever sprouted are a narrow-leaved companion that grew even though the seeds were 32,000 years old, more or less. They had to survive to be able to bloom, encased in ice, thawed, and brought to life. The most important thing is that you make it. No matter how imperceptible the movement, how long it takes to reach the best version of who you mean to be. You are irreplaceable. You are meant to live.
As we heard in our moment for all ages this morning, Universalism's initial foray into North America was quite by coincidence. John Murray was a British Universalist minister who, after his hostile reception in England, swore he would never preach again. This, combined with the personal tragedy of his first wife Eliza's death, as well as the deaths of his only son and 4 of Murray's siblings, and a stint in debtor's prison, led him to swear he would never take up preaching again. As any of us who have ever preached can tell you, that's a dangerous oath to make. In 1770, he boarded the brig Hand in Hand, bound for North America. He decided he wanted to lose himself in America, to, in his own words, pass through life, unheard, unseen, unknown to all, as though I ne'er had been. The rest, as they say, is history, with maybe a little coincidence thrown in for good measure. Murray's ship, bound for New York, was blown off course and set ashore on a sandbar in Good Luck Point, New Jersey. There, on a foraging trip with the vessel's captain, he met Thomas Potter, who, upon learning Murray was a minister, implored him to preach a sermon in a chapel he built on his land. The legend goes that Potter built the chapel believing that God would send someone to preach a doctrine that needed to be heard in the New World. And he was convinced Murray was the one that God had sent. Of course, the building of the chapel was probably helped along by the fact that Potter's wife was tired of him bringing all of his friends home and having long and drawn-out philosophical and theological conversations in the parlor. Most likely, she was just as much an unseen force in the chapel's construction as God was. The story goes that Murray was initially reluctant, but Potter was a persistent man. Potter extracted a promise from Murray that he would preach if his ship remained onshore on Sunday. The winds did not change, and Murray preached. Potter was greatly impressed and invited Murray to stay. Murray went ahead and traveled with the ship to New York, but he soon returned to New Jersey and began a popular evangelical career. The story soon became the founding narrative of American Universalism, and as with most stories, it's imperfect. There were already German Christians settled in New England who believed in universal salvation prior to Murray's arrival. And the first actual Universalist church was not founded for another 4 years when, in 1774, Murray planted a congregation in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Nevertheless, Murray's first sermon in Good Luck Point has always represented sort of a turning point for Universalism in America because it set into motion a chain of events that led to the foundation of what was for a time one of the largest mainline Christian churches in America. With the 250th anniversary of Murray's first sermon coming up this week on September 30th, it seems a good time to explore why I consider Universalism to still be so relevant to our denomination and our nation today. At a time when religion is so often used as a force for violence, oppression, and marginalization, what would it mean to take seriously a denomination founded on the notion that God's love is so wide and all-encompassing that no one will be damned to suffering for all eternity? Why is this notion so powerful, even for folks who don't believe in a God or gods in the traditional sense of the word? This month, we've been talking about worth and dignity at AUUF. If you were at last week's service, you heard two powerful reflections about the meaning of dignity. But a theme I particularly heard is that dignity is not something that needs to be earned, though we often act as if it does. That's a tough standard to live by. After all, it means that some folks who have committed unspeakable evils throughout history still have dignity, even as they were denying it to others. Serial killers, dictators, fascists, they all have dignity. And it's dignity that may be hidden by the unspeakable acts they commit, but they are there nonetheless. If my personal philosophy reflects that other people have dignity, then universalism is the theological reflection of this universal worth. Throughout so much history, religion has been used to create an us versus them, to separate the people who are like us from those who just aren't normal. Black, indigenous people of color, ethnic minorities, queer and trans folks, people with disabilities, those who struggle with mental wellness, immigrants, gender minorities, non-dominant religions and denominations, the poor and working class, criminals. These are just a few of the categories of people who have been dehumanized by an exclusionary view of religion over the centuries. Many still treat religion in this way today, as a systemic way to separate the wheat from the chaff, the saved from the unsaved. The religious force that was so often used to scare people into check was the threat of hell, an eternal suffering that you are subjected to by the judgment of God for unforgiven sins, both great and small. In this narrative, there is no difference between mass murder and petty theft, between telling a lie and committing unspeakable acts. And though some have tried to soften God's complicity in this by implying that it is the unbelievers' fault they are being tormented, not God's. The fact still remains that hell, if you believe in it, is a pretty damn scary fate, pun intended. And that was the idea. To create a punishment so great that it would hopefully motivate most people to fall in line and be good Christians. Unless we believe that eternal suffering is a justified fate for a person with inherent worth and dignity, then it's hard to see this form of Christianity upholding universal dignity for all. Universalism upended these assumptions, declaring there is none so evil that their dignity should be stripped in such a dehumanizing way, and that the Christian God, as a God of love, would never be so evil as to commit such heinous acts that would be punishable by hell if they were committed by humans. It was a metaphorical putting one's foot down, declaring that all who walk the earth are holy and whole, just the way they are. This was a revelation in ethics for how we treat people. After all, if Christian ethics encourages others to imitate God, then rather than casting aside people who offend us, Universalism calls us to bring into the fold rather than cast them out, to seek out the lost sheep that had strayed with fervency and grace, to never cast people outside the bounds of community. A call to radical love, to borrow a phrase from Martin Luther King Jr. A universalist ethic is a refusal to see anyone as so flawed as to be irredeemable, beyond the reach of love. It means being bound to the idea that no matter how people look in their actions, they still have dignity, and that comes with a certain responsibility, even when they don't recognize their own duties to others. Universalism is the doctrine that, to quote Reverend Teresa I. Soto from this morning's reading, by virtue of being alive, you matter, and you cannot be more deserving of dignity, of respect, of love. That sounds great to most Unitarian Universalists I've talked to. Even if you're an atheist, a faith based upon the inherent worth and dignity of all people sounds much more attractive than one based on a fear of hell. It's an ethic that can inspire us to take action for justice, compassion, and equality, to live in ways that are more loving. I have had many people tell me that they found their way to Unitarian Universalism because of our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all people. Whether it was because of our stances on equality for Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQIA folks, immigrants, disabled people, or our multi-faith orientation. These folks have told me that these were stances sorely missing from the faiths they grew up in, often very fundamentalist religions that were used to deprive others of their humanity. Don't get me wrong, this is a great reason to be a Unitarian Universalist. After all, it is comforting to know we're all sacred in the grand scheme of things. But what's not immediately easy to see is that Universalism is a hard religion to fully embrace, and the first principle may be the most difficult to live by. It's not just the marginalized, the oppressed who have inherent worth and dignity. It's every person who ever has or ever will exist. As my colleague, the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, once said, it's the radical idea that even Adolf Hitler is in heaven. That's a tough belief to swallow. And I've had people tell me that they can't be universalists because they want to believe there's some sort of cosmic justice in the end. They want to believe that Hitler is in hell. Universalism, though, declares that every dictator, corrupt politician, and serial murderer has dignity just as much as everyone else. It means that nothing can separate you from your worth, from your right to be treated humanely as a valued member of the Earth's population. And that the minute we start creating those divisions, those differences, we're in danger of going down a path that may lead us to our own destruction. For me, the crucial difference is that universalism teaches me that everyone has dignity. It doesn't tell me I have to accept every belief and action as also having dignity. As one of my colleagues once said, the first principle is that every person has inherent worth and dignity, not every belief or every idea or every action. I can condemn the actions of a man like Donald Trump, for instance, declare how he's not acting in the interests of love, equality, and justice, and yet see the young boy who, according to testimony from other family members, was abused by both of his parents. Universalism teaches me that even when people act in ways that deny the dignity of others, that's no reason to deny them their own dignity. It does not teach that I cannot resist the harmful and evil acts of others. It doesn't deny that sometimes boundaries need to be drawn in the instance of protecting the dignity of others. It doesn't even say we shouldn't be angry or outraged when people act in ways that diminish our own worth. What it does declare when we take it seriously is that each one of us is a product of our own experiences, and any one of us could have turned out very differently. It's a reminder to show compassion to others, even when it feels like they don't deserve it. Maybe especially when it feels like they don't deserve it, because we might be the ones that need similar patience someday. Do I live the Universalist ethic perfectly? Hell no. I'm still only human, and there's days when I know I've screwed up and denied a person their dignity. We all do. And living out my universalism is still an aspiration for me. I'm getting better, recognizing my own triggers, such as limiting the amount of politics that I discuss online, and striving to live in ways that seek to understand the other person whom I strongly disagree with, even when there doesn't seem to be any common ground. In the words of American journalist Rick Bragg, every life deserves a certain amount of dignity, no matter how poor or damaged the shell that carries it. Universalism is not just a reactive ethic that seeks to right the wrongs of an unjust and often cruel society. It is an entire way of being that, if allowed, will transform us from the inside out. Its goal is that all may be saved, to quote the title of a book by Christian theologian David Bentley Hart, saved in the arms of beloved community, brought into the fold, that we find ways to hold people accountable and to hold people without denying their dignity, to rehabilitate them into a more loving way of being. It seeks to make room for everyone, recognizing that everyone in this room deserves to be here. And indeed, this is a vision that I believe our world is still far from realizing. However, I believe that Thomas Potter was onto something when he had such faith that universalism needed to be preached in America. 250 years later, it still does. I'm convinced it could be the antidote to so much hate, selfishness, and division. This is my message to you this morning. Whether you be an atheist or a theist, whether you believe this is all there is or whether you believe there is something hereafter, let the doctrine of eternal universal dignity inhabit your very soul. And may we each learn to see the sparkling beauty which lies beneath every person, cannot be covered over or denied, no matter who you are. May it be so. I'd like to invite you to join in our closing hymn, which is hymn number 121 in the gray hymnal, "We'll Build a Land." The words will be shared on screen.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness
So I just preached to y'all about how Adolf Hitler has inherent worth and dignity, but this is the hard part of the service. So this week is one that many of us have mixed feelings about. For it marks the end of her tenure of Julie Meadows as our Director of Religious Exploration. As most of you know, Julie announced last month that she would be stepping down from her position effective September 30th. So this marks the last Sunday service in which Julie is DRE, though she will still be both in our AUUF and our local Auburn Opelika community. I know many of you joined me in feeling that this is the end of an era. This morning, as we thank Julie for her many years of service, I want to give her an opportunity to say goodbye in her own words.
Hey everybody, it is Julie Meadows, current Director of Religious Exploration at Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. This is my last official Sunday as DRE, and I want to thank everybody for all the support and love and just everything that I have received from this community over the last 5 years as DRE and the last 2 years for sure. I have just been very grateful for everybody and just for our wonderful community in general as DRE and as Julie Meadows. I'm coming to you from my special place on my property. This is a little pond that I hope to spend my time as not DRE, working on a little bit more and building up the farm. And I'm hoping that as we find or navigate our way through these crazy times, that we can find a way that getting together is safe in small groups, and I hope to be able to show all of you this wonderful place that I am finding to help me through. I love every one of you, and I really appreciate all that you've done during my time as DRE, and I'm so excited to meet and support our next incoming DRE and to see all the wonderful things that they bring. My best to everyone during this time. Stay safe, and I hope to see all of you soon.
Julie, your presence with us has been such a blessing and so appreciated. And I hope you felt that something was up when I asked you to be in the room this morning. Because some of the members of our community, both past and present, wanted to express to you how much your time with us has meant.
Hi, Julie. Thinking back to your DRE years, we had a lot of planning, we had a lot of events. I thank you, and we look forward to many years of you in the fellowship as a member and as my friend. Thank you, Julie.
I like that she's funny, silly, but sometimes serious.
Does she know how to keep class in order?
Yeah.
Keep your RE classes organized and together?
Hey Julie, just a message to say thank you so much for everything that you've ever done for all of our kids. You've been a wonderful DRE, and the fellowship has been so lucky to have you. and we're certainly lucky to have you as friends. We love you so much, and we wish you the best in this next chapter of your life.
My favorite memory of Julie is when she invited me to her new house, and I got to see her giant pool, and I got to see her new dogs.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Hey Julie, this is Laura. I just want to say that I'm happy for you that you're moving forward with your life choices, but sad to see you leave as our DRE. You have just a natural gift of working with children and youth very well, so we'll miss you a bunch.
One of my favorite memories of Julie was when we got to go to her house and see all her animals, like her dogs, chickens, and turkeys. I really enjoyed learning about the animals, and I really loved seeing the baby animals especially. Thank you, Julie, so much for giving me that amazing experience.
Miss Julie, we have loved working with you in RE and in the OWL program. You have made it so special and so important to us. It's one of our favorite things about fellowship, and you made it extra special.
Julie, hope you have a safe drive. I'm gonna miss you.
Hi, Julie. Ever since I've met you, I've had a soft place in my heart for you and your family. I thought your talent with children shines through. So I was just delighted when you became our DRE. Thank you for sharing your special love, talent, and creativity with our children. Best wishes for whatever comes next.
Hi, Julie. It's me, Grant, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done for me and for my family and for everyone in UU. And just wanted you to know that we deeply appreciate you and everything that you do for the community.
So, Monty, how did you meet Julie?
When I was being babysat, and I played in a box with Shevlin and Cassidy.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
I love you.
Hi, I'm Lydia. I wanted to say thank you for all of that Julie has done for the RE program. And she's meant a lot in my life. I've known her since I was a baby. I don't even know how long. I don't even remember how I met her. She probably does. But I'm just very thankful for her. And
I think the thing that has made her so exceptional as a DRE has been the fact that she has this long and deep connection with the children and families of AUUF. And it's just her calling to work with children. She has skills. She's sometimes like the Pied Piper, I think. So thank you for everything, and thank you for being you. And I wish you every good luck and every blessing.
I love you, Julie.
Anyway, we were supposed to reflect a little bit on you as DRE, and I really like to think of you, your DRE time, as really an extension as being a mom with kids in RE. For example, with Cassidy, always had that smile. Well, mostly. And she had that way of getting everyone to pitch in, sort of like when we made that RE project with her chair. You do that too. You're able to get people to just pitch in. And Jeblin, well, such an unassuming young man, but he's really a true leader. He knows how to get out front and get people to go in the right direction. And you do that too. So I think you're an RE DRE, but it's just an extension of you being a mom. So please take this with you on behalf of this teen RE teacher. Thanks.
Hey Julie, me, Jenna, and Dante want to thank you for everything you've done and say that we love you a lot and we wish happy things for you. Bye.
Hey Julie,
Hey Julie.
we just wanted to send warm greetings to you, and I just wanted to thank you for everything. Being in RE and Owl, I learned so much from you, and we really have appreciated all of the patience and the good, you have such a good temperament and the way you interact with the children. I've always admired that and looked at trying to do that myself.
Anyway, we appreciate that you were part of their growth, and it really means a lot to us. We just want to say thank you for what you did for Misha and Leah.
Okay, so that's how Sunday school with a twist in the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship goes. And someone invited me to participate, and I embraced it, and I got smothered with kids. Thanks.
I just want to say working with you over the last year has been such a blessing. It's been such a positive thing in my life, and you're just such a positive and sweet soul despite all. And I just wanted to say thank you so very much.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and one of my fondest memories of Julie is the way she used to open up a lot of the RE activities to everyone in the fellowship, not just her students. And I can remember having a great time making Christmas cookies and Valentine's cards and having fun at game nights. And it was just something that really helped me to feel more included in the church and in the fellowship at a time when I really needed it. Thank you, Julie.
Julie, you do more positive things for other people than anyone I've ever met. It's wonderful how you dedicate your life to kids. And thank you so much for all that you've done for our congregation and for the RE program. I look forward to you sending me more pictures of critters out at your place. Hope your new life and involving your new property is wonderful, and I wish you all the best. Stay in touch, and we'll see each other soon.
So tell me something that you like about Julie.
I get to stay, I get to go out, I get to stay the night at Julie's house. And once I stayed at her house for the night, and in the morning, Julie made waffles, and there was whipped cream and chocolate, and there was one more thing, but I can't remember. So what I did is I put the whipped cream on, and then the chocolate, and then I put a little more whipped cream on, and then the chocolate, and then I spreaded it around, and it was really yummy.
Good morning. I just wanted to take the time, Julie, to thank you for all the work you did with RE, growing the program, finding activities that were really meaningful for all of our youth, teacher training that you did, just everything. And I remember when you were named as the DRE, I thought I just couldn't think of a better person to do that particular job. Your warm, caring, nurturing personality was just right for the time and the place. And I want to thank you and wish you all the best as you move forward.
We thank you, dear Julie, for all you have given to children, animals, the land. as you continue your journey, may full of sorrow. Peace be with you, ever through you, dear friend. And everyone meet their pride and victory, shall live in peace and unafraid. Peace.
So it's pretty easy to tell that some of those videos had to be cut for time. Daryl had a very hard time in editing. He managed to get it down to the length that you all just saw. He tells me the uncut is over 30 minutes. So he will be getting out an uncut version of all of that to the listserv. And so you'll be able to see everyone's wishes for Julie uncut. And I know some of you weren't able to get videos in, and there is so much more that could have been said. But I think this goes to show the depth of appreciation folks have for you, Julie. One final thing before we decommission you, Julie, is we have a couple of gifts for you. And we're meeting on Tuesday anyway, so I will talk to you then about where we're leaving them for you to pick them up. But the first is from the congregation. And the board asked Carolyn Levy, because we know how amazing of a gift giver Carolyn Levy is, to pick out a gift for you, Julie. And after consulting with some people who know you pretty well, we have a new set of Corinthian outdoor chimes. And Carolyn told me that she was told to get some big ones. On behalf of the fellowship, thank you, Julie. And one more thing, Julie. On behalf of myself and the rest of the staff, I wanted to get something for you that I hope you'll be able to hang for many, many years to come. This is a canvas print of a painting done by my colleague, Reverend Denise Colley, a colleague based in West Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Denise says of this painting that Unitarian Universalism sees a chalice representing abundance and peace. We have a chalice here, and this chalice represents the beauty that each of us has within us and how we bloom into our fuller gifts, with the flowers coming out of the chalice, representing your abundance of gifts coming out from within you, Julie. Julie, whatever you do in the future, I know that it will be bright and it will be so full of love. Thank you for everything you've done. In the spring of 2015, this congregation and Julie Meadows entered into an unspoken covenant with one another. Julie agreed to step out of her role as a regular member to become our professional director of religious education. In turn, the congregation agreed to recognize Julie in this role and to support her work. Because Julie was also a member of this congregation, this new arrangement presented its own challenges. But in the case of Director of Religious Exploration, you gain authority with members who teach as you come to supervise them. Your role with respect to parents, children changes as well. Julie handled all of her transitions with maturity and grace. Now it is time for her to expand back into her role, to step back into her role as a regular spiritual member of this congregation and relinquish her role as Director of Religious Exploration. Years of experience and wisdom show that this transition can be difficult, even more difficult for both the individual and the congregation than crossing the other direction. Today, we release Julie from our covenant with her as Director of Religious Exploration. We welcome her back into regular covenant as a member of our congregation. I would like to invite the congregation to please extend your hands towards your camera, ritually laying hands on Julie, and join me as I release her from covenant with us. Julie, we release you from the covenant of Director of Religious Exploration. We thank you for accepting this responsibility, for leading and shaping the lives of our children. We welcome you back among us as a member of Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We promise to walk with you and each other in the spirit of mutual love. We promise to recognize and respect your boundaries as your role among us changes. If you agree to this and you release Julie from her covenant with us, please type in the Zoom chat box, "I do." We have given thanks and gifts. We have welcomed Julie back as a regular member of our congregation. May we all be bearers of the light of our beloved community as we continue our journey together. Please join me one more time in thanking Julie. With the transitioning of one leader, many are probably asking, what's next? Well, this morning, I'd like to invite the DRE search team to make a very special announcement. Good morning. I'm Reverend Chris Rothbauer.
And I'm Emily Graff.
And I'm Sally McCreary, and together we are your DRE search team.
For the past month, we have worked diligently, consulting with regional staff and the board, thinking about what we wanted in the next leader of our Children and Youth Religious Exploration program. It was not an easy task, for these are not easy times. We decided what our congregation needed the most right now was a leader who would help navigate our program through the current pandemic when so many things have to be remote, and help us assess our program and decide what we hope for in the future.
With this in mind, we decided our next leader should be someone with tech skills necessary to lead us through the virtual RE experience, as well as someone willing to seriously take into account how to fully integrate our children, youth, and their families during this time.
From a pool of applicants, we narrowed our candidates down to 3 choices, each qualified for the position in their own way. One candidate stood out above the rest, though, and we unanimously recommended making an offer to the board, which they have since accepted and signed a letter of agreement with us. Their first official date will be October 1st, and they will be with us through the end of June 2021.
It is with great enthusiasm that I introduce to you Matt Aspen. Matt is a longtime Unitarian Universalist who recently graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School with a Master of Divinity degree and also passed the Unitarian Universalist Association's Ministerial Fellowship Committee, meaning that Matt is a fully endorsed minister within our movement. Matt comes from a background in personnel and human resources, where he helped develop curriculum for diverse leaders.
At Matt's home congregation, Westside Unitarian Universalist congregation in Seattle, Washington. Matt was a frequent RE teacher and committee member, as well as serving on the Board of Trustees. Matt completed his ministerial internship at Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation in Tahoma, Washington, where he was considered a valued member of the staff and a calming presence. Matt's extensive experience working with children and youth, both as a layperson and an intern minister, will prove very valuable to his role here.
Your DRE search team was very impressed with Matt's thoughtfulness, his calm and calming presence, his extensive experience working with organizations in interim periods, his experience with online learning platforms, his passion for Unitarian Universalism, and his desire to see the children and youth of the congregation he serves, as well as their families, be fully integrated into the life of the congregation.
Matt currently lives in West Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and will be working with us remotely. We will be announcing ways to get to know him in the coming weeks, but I have no doubt that his time with us will be valuable and fruitful. I hope you'll join me in welcoming Matt to our fellowship. And with that, I want to give Matt a few moments to introduce himself to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chris, Emily, and Sally, for placing your trust in me and for that thoughtful introduction. You've given me quite a bit to live up to. I'm Matt Aspen. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his, and I was thrilled when Reverend Chris called to say that I had been selected for this role. That phone call was the culmination of a midlife leap of faith that began more than 5 years ago. And while I never could have predicted at the time that this leap would land me serving remotely in the beautiful state of Alabama, I have not had a single doubt since my first introduction to Reverend Chris that AUUF is definitely the community that I have been called to serve as I begin this next chapter of my journey towards ministry. I recognize that I come to you during a time of great transition and uncertainty. I'm following in the footsteps of an effective and beloved RE professional that has journeyed with you and your children for many years, and whose departure was both unexpected and completely understandable. As the parent of an ever-curious 11-year-old daughter, I know this intimately, the challenges inherent in trying to raise our kids in a world that even before COVID sometimes seems intent on testing our limits and challenging us to become more and more resourceful every day as we try to prepare our children with the skills and spiritual grounding they will need to navigate their own challenges. I sense that I am entering a strong community, filled with generous seekers committed to supporting one another, our families, and our children on their collective journeys. I'm looking forward to having fun, learning together, and making our way through this next year with hopes of brighter tomorrows and gratitude for all of the joys that we have already been given. Thank you, Auburn. I look forward to meeting you all. It is truly good to be joining you on this exciting next chapter of your ever-evolving story.
And a note to let you all know about, although we initially had in mind an acting director of religious exploration role, with the blessing of the board and Matt's extensive qualifications and, in fact, overqualification for the job, for the first time in the history of Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, we have decided not to hire a director of religious exploration. Instead, Matt will be joining us as our acting minister of religious exploration. And before anyone asks, yes, we've crunched the numbers. Matt will not only be taking over the role of directing the Children and Youth RE program, but he'll also be available for pastoral care for children, youth, and their families. And you're going to get to see him preach. I hope that you all will join us in welcoming Matt to our community. Thank you for sticking with us in what I know has been a much longer than usual service. There's been nothing that we could have done to cut it down anymore, I promise. Please join me in extinguishing our chalices. You'll find the words on screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join me for our benediction.
Go forth into the world in peace, in peace. Be of good courage, hold fast that which is good. Go forth into the world in peace, in peace. Love all people, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit. Go in peace.
Our benediction is from Eric Williams. We all emerge from, dwell within, are transformed by, and called back to love. May your mind be humbled before this mystery. May your heart grow hopeful by it. May you be sustained by this love always. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.